Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our sixth lesson. Previously, we have been learning about the madi and also, of course, the grammatical rules related to the jumla fi'liya or the verbal sentence. From now on, inshallah, in this lesson and a few lessons forward, we're going to look at the imperfect tense, i.e., an action that is yet to be complete or being done right now. It is not complete yet at the time of speaking. We're going to look at its scale, and then we're going to look at the three different scale and conjugate 14 different variations in the three main scales of the mudari verb, the imperfect tense. So we begin again with our dua, Rabbi zidni ilma, O my Lord, increase me in knowledge. And let us begin with the blessed name of Allah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inshallah, you're already familiar with this. We have covered this in detail in previous lesson. We mentioned right at the beginning, the verbs in Arabic are essentially of three types: the perfect, the imperfect, and the amr. So we've done the madi in detail in the previous lessons. So we are now going to start our study of the imperfect verb. We also looked at how the doer works in the jumla fi'liya, and also how the maf'ul, the object, also works in jumla fi'liya and their various types. So if you're new here, please go and watch the previous lessons, as I will not be repeating what the content of this is. But the reason why I'm bringing as a reminder to you that the rules that you've learned regarding the doer, which is the fa'il, and also the maf'ul, is exactly the same whether the verb is madi or mudari, meaning whichever verb it is, the rules are the same. So we've learned the rules, we just got to practice them now with a different type of verb. So let's look at the mudari in some detail. So inshallah ta'ala, we can learn it right the first time. So we've done the madi, where we learned that it is the action that is complete at the time of speaking. For example, I ate, I slept, etc. Then we have the mudari, which is the one we're looking at now. Now, this is a bit more detailed than the perfect tense verb in Arabic, because it involves three actions. One, habitual. For example, he helps, he talks, habitual. And then present continuous. He is helping, I am helping, you are talking. So this is present continuous. And also it can mean in the future. He will help. So al-mudari covers all of these. Because the action is not complete at the time of speaking, it is called the imperfect, whereas the other one is called perfect. And these are just terms used by grammarians, but we will soon start using the Arabic. So it's al-mudari and means an action not yet complete, and it is imperfect in grammatical terminology. We're going to look at amr later. So we have nasara, yanquru. Nasara, he helped. I'm sure you know this one. Yanquru, he helps. And the command from unsur, we will pick up once we've done the mudari in detail. What is al-mudari? Al-mudari verb, it plays a very pivotal role in the language, and it really gives us the meaning of three things. Either present tense, he goes; present continuous, he is going, or he will go. Okay, as in the future tense. Now, you notice in English, I'm using additional words to give the meaning. In the Arabic, the content really is what's going to give us which one of these three it is, but the shape of the scale of the word will remain intact. We don't need to add anything else, and we'll see that inshallah ta'ala later on. But to make it more specific, we'll have particles. So the mudari verb includes, I repeat, includes a meaning of an action that is not really complete. And that is why they call it imperfect tense, al-mudari. So the main point is that it can give us these imperfect actions that are not complete at the time of speaking. So the imperfect tense focuses on actions that are currently ongoing, will happen in the future, or something that is habitual. Therefore, depending on context, we will translate the imperfect verb to the context that we are looking at within the structures of the sentences. But we cannot get to that level until you've learned the scale to recognize it, and of course, to be able to understand the root, etc. So inshallah ta'ala, let's go step by step, just to be aware that al-mudari is an imperfect tense action not complete at the time of speaking. So let's illustrate what we are talking about. You know these three verbs already. Fataha, he opened. Nasara, he helped. Dhahaba, he went. So you can see here very clear that the action has already been completed. Now in Arabic, if I want to say he is opening, he opens or he will open. Of course, the doer can be she, it, they, or name of a specific person or a group. It doesn't really matter, but the principle is the same. He is opening, he opens, he will open. That is covered by the mudari, and the mudari is yaftahu, yaftahu. Fataha, he opened, he opens, yaftahu. Same with nasara. If I want to say he is helping, he helps, he will help, she is helping, I'm helping, they're helping, the teacher, Hamid or Maryam, whatever it is, we will need now the form of the verb that explains that action, and that is yanquru, yanquru. And then, of course, he is going, he goes, he will go, will be yadhhabu. So we're going to learn how to conjugate these, inshallah ta'ala. But you can see here, in Arabic, the root letters remain intact. This is very, very important. There is very little change at all in the root. Of course, there cannot be a change from the madi to the mudari. The root letters remains intact and in the order that we know them. What's happening is vowels have been added, additional things are being added to give us the structure and the scale. So this is the first point, inshallah ta'ala. And as we progress forward, you will see how the root letter always remains within the word, but because the scale is different, it gives us additional meaning or changes it from, for example, here as one example, from the perfect to the imperfect. So make a note of these three examples, inshallah ta'ala. That will be enough. When we see the illustrated examples, it will make a lot more sense to us. The scale of al-mudari. You're already familiar with the concept of scales in Arabic. The scale of al-madi we've learned in detail in the previous lessons, so you should be familiar with the idea of what scales are. The scale of al-mudari is slightly different. It is actually a little bit more involved, and a lot of people get confused with it. So inshallah, I'm going to go very slow, so inshallah you can capture the main points. If you go through the lessons the way I'm showing you, and you make notes and you study it for a few minutes, inshallah ta'ala, it is not really complex. It just follows a different system. So with the mudari, the first thing to note is that there will always be a letter at the beginning of the verb, which will be either hamza, ya, ta, or noon. One of those. Of course, for the huwa version, the one we are starting with, it is ya. So the first thing that you will see on the scale, and it is an obligatory thing that is always there, is the letter of mudara is called, okay, harf al-mudara'a. You'll see some books mention the sign of mudara, but these are just technical terms. I prefer the term harf, so because it is a letter. So the first thing you'll notice is the harf al-mudara, which you can see here. Yeah. Then you have your three root letters, just like we've seen before, first, second, and third, and you got the arrows pointing to indicate to the scale. So what happens with these three root letters? Please note, the root letters must be there. What we have at the beginning is not a root letter, but a prefix. Prefix being a letter, either ya, ta, hamza, or noon. So the rules are very, very simple. The first root letter will always take a sukoon. The last root letter will take a dhamma, which you can see here. Just like we saw with the madi, the second root letter can take a fatha, dhamma, or kasra. Fatha, dhamma, or kasra. So we have the options are as follows. You have, let me clean the screen out so it'll be easier for you to see. You have the first yaf, alu, yaf alu, which is a fatha. Then the second version is yaf ilu, which is a kasra, and the third version is yaf ulu, which is a dhamma. So just like we saw with the madi, it is only the middle root letter that takes three different scale vowel signs. Either fatha, dhamma, or kasra. The others are fixed. Others are fixed. So the variation is in the middle root letter. So this is the scale of al-mudara, okay, the mudara verb, harf al-mudara at the beginning. So as a reminder to you, fa, ain, lam is our three root letter representation in this scale. So we have fa'ula, fa'ala, fa'ila. And we've done many examples of that. We're going to see the same thing with the mudari. We're going to see yaf, then ulu, yaf'alu, or yaf'ilu. Again, all the other things will be remaining constant. So in the three versions of the fa'ala that we saw in the previous lessons, of course, you should be familiar with this now. You got your three root letters and you have your fa'ala scale. You have, with example, fataha, you see nasara, he opened, he helped, etc. And fa'ila will be the next one. Two examples again, sami'a, he heard, and we also got alima, he knew. And then we got karuma, which is the last scale, which is fa'ula, and this is very rare, but there are a few. You're going to come across karuma. So you have now the representation of three. We're going to see the same thing with the mudari in the sense that we will have also three options. We have yaf, then alu, yaf'ilu, and yaf'ulu. So we have yaf'alu, yaf'ilu, and yaf'ulu. In the yaf'alu version, we have yaftahu, he opens, and then we have yadhhabu, he goes. And of course, there are thousands of other verbs. I'm just only giving you two. Yaf'ilu, we will have yadribu, he strikes, whereas daraba was he struck or he hit. And we have also yadhlimu, dhalama is the past tense, yadhlimu, he wrongs. And of course, in the ulu version, we have yansuru and yakrumu. Yansuru, yakrumu, and again, you will find many on that scale. So yaf'ulu. So this is the scale and the representation. You're going to learn how to do this, inshallah ta'ala. And not only that, you're going to take that base form and you're going to make 14 different variations. So just to give you the example, the variation only is in the second root letter. Conjugation of al-mudari on the scale of yaf'alu. Before we go to conjugate, make sure that you are familiar with this. This is from lesson 5 in book 1. You know the 14 pronouns. If you haven't learned that yet, then you are going to struggle because these 14 pronouns are there to represent in every verb, and each one is called a sigha. And again, we covered all of this in the previous lesson. So we have 14 different variations of the verb based upon what represents these pronouns, I should say, in the verb. Again, in the madi, we went through this in detail. So you should be able to read out very quickly the entire 14 pronouns: huwa, huma, hum, hiya, huma, hunna, anta, antuma, antum, anti, antuma, antunna, ana, nahnu. Again, I'm not going to go through this in detail. You should have by now, if you've been following my series, this should be second nature to you. Just like English pronouns, you have no problems with. These 14 other pronouns. For each one, in the Madi, we created 14. If you remember, we made or formed or conjugated 14 verbs. And then we're going to do the same thing with al-mudari now, inshallah ta'ala. So make sure you're familiar with this already. The boxes, what they represent, third person, second person, first person, and all the other technical jargon, singular, dual, and plural, masculine and feminine. So that's the property side of it taken care of. Please pay attention that you are 100% familiar with this before you move on, and that will make your life very easy for you, inshallah ta'ala, to learn complex. If you don't know the easy very well, then you will struggle with the complex stuff, inshallah ta'ala. So please put your time and effort in to memorize this if you have not done so already. Before I conjugate one for you, I want you to take a look at this screen. By all means, take a screenshot if you have to. These are the 14 variations of the mudari verb based on the root dhahaba, which follows the yaf'alu pattern. So we have yadhhabu as our first one. Now you will note I've colored them differently, and I'm doing that with a purpose. So if you are rewriting them as I go through, and you've got access to 3 different colors or whatever, 4 different colors, please use a notebook and do follow some color system. If you don't have green, you can use something else, alternate to the green noons that I've got, etc. But if you do that, inshallah, this will help you retain them. and they look complex and varied and so on, and you might think, how on earth am I going to learn these? They're very easy once you actually do at least one or two conjugation, inshallah ta'ala. A lot of people are scared of Arabic because when they get into something new and they don't actually spend enough time understanding what's going on, they think it's too complex and then they give up. Please trust me on this. It is not complex. Yes, it looks daunting, it looks difficult, but it is relatively easy. And for that purpose, to make it easy for you, I'm going to use a color system. Again, you don't have to stick with it. As soon as you've learned it, you can get rid of it. Otherwise, you'll be, taking hours to write just one word. But at the beginning, if you can see the colors and what they mean, or the different types within the scale, you'll be able to, inshallah ta'ala, do that for any verb in Arabic. Just like the time I spent with you doing the Muslim table, I explained the importance of it. When I did the same thing with the Madi, I went to the anatomy of the Madi. We're going to do the same thing here, but in different stages, inshallah ta'ala. So I'm going to conjugate this verb, dhahaba, past tense, yadhhabu, present tense, inshallah ta'ala. And I'm going to do it slightly slowly so that, inshallah ta'ala, you can get all the points. I'll go through each point, make your own notes, inshallah ta'ala, and go through that scale. And then the others I'm going to do quickly. Otherwise, the video will be way too long. So inshallah, this slow method will benefit you. And I hope, inshallah ta'ala, you learn. So this is what we're going to conjugate, 14 variations. And again, the lower line on the table, you can see it, they, masculine, plural. For example, wow, representatives, and whom, and all of this stuff I went through in the Madi. So hopefully will not cause you too much of a problem. But just now, concentrate on the verb form only. We will look at the doer and stuff, inshallah ta'ala, a little bit later. So let us begin with the blessed name of Allah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in completing the conjugation. Inshallah, I'm going to conjugate the 14 forms of al-mudari verb. For you, we could have picked any of them, but that they will have in principle exactly the same. So the first one, I'm going to go very slowly. And inshallah, I'm going to type it rather than just flashing it on the PowerPoint. I believe this will help you retain it longer. After I have finished the form, the sigha, please pause the video and write your own. But don't write while I'm writing, because I'll be making changes as I'm speaking, inshallah ta'ala. So once I've done it, write it down. And if you can use different colors, I will highlight the colors differently as well. This will help you retain a lot of Arabic grammar just by following this method. Otherwise, you'll have to go into learning all terminology and all sorts of stuff. And you'll see the mudari is a lot more detailed than the Madi. And a lot of people get confused which is which and what. But if you write it down a couple of times in the way I'm going through it, inshallah ta'ala, you will not be confused. I'm going to go through all parts of it in another lesson, which is called the anatomy of al-mudari, where I'll explain all the bits. But at the moment, I think it's quickly to learn conjugation quickly, which is go through it, do few, and then in the future lessons, when we need to go to advanced forms, we will look at the all the details like we did with the Madi. But for now, I'm going to point those points out, but don't worry about it. Just learn the scale and try to memorize it. Now, the verb that I've chosen to do this with is the, ha, and ba. Okay, I could have chosen any. And it follows the yaf'alu scale, which you can see here, yaf'alu scale. Okay, let me put that in a different color so you can see it. Let's go for red. Okay, so you can see the scale at the top there. That's the one we're going to follow. Now, of course, the boxes that you'll be already familiar with. First box represents huwa. Next one, huma. I'm not going to write them all here just to save, not to clutter the screen. Hum. I'm going to just write them before I go do them. So these are all masculine. These are all masculine versions of the third person. He, they, two male, and they male plural. So these are your three. Let's do the huwa version first. Huwa version will be the yaf'alu version, exactly the same as yaf'alu. So I put ya first. And the first root letter was dal, if you remember. So yad. The second root letter was ha. And in this case, we're going to put fatha on it because it follows the yaf'alu fatha. It could be e, it could be u. That's the only three options. But this one takes the fatha. Okay, and the third root letter takes a dhamma. So yaf'alu yadhhabu. Yaf'alu yadhhabu. The ya, we're going to color in blue. Okay, just for the sake of it stands out, but you can choose any color you like. So yadhhabu, yadhhabu. The huma version will have our same letter of mudari. So we'll start with ya, Let me copy that just to save a bit of time. We have yad. First root letter takes a sukun. The second letter ha. Third root letter takes a fatha now. The reason why it takes a fatha because the doer is huma, and huma is represented here by the alif. So alif prefers the fatha before. So we have yadhhaba. Let's put that in there in red. And then we have the noon afterwards. And I'm going to color that one in a different color. Let's choose green for the sake of there. So that becomes yadhhabani. Yadhhabani. Huwa yadhhabu. Huma yadhhabani. I hope those two are clear, inshallah ta'ala. The third version, which is the hum version, again, I'll copy the first section to make life easy. So the first is the sign of, or the harf of mudara, which you can see here, ya, with the fatha. And then first root letter takes a sukun. The second root letter takes a fatha. And then the third root letter here is going to also take a dhamma because the doer here is hum, which is represented by waw, and we have our noon at the end. Okay, so let's just color that in red. So that's your doer, waw. What does it represent? It represents the hum, meaning they, masculine plural. So yadhhabuna. Now I'll explain to you in advanced lessons. Inshallah, mudara is coming now very soon. Why I've colored it in green, but for now, if you can color it, it will actually, you'll remember later when I go through it. Now the next we have here should be the here version. Here, then we have the huma, and then we have the hunna version. So huwa yadhhabu. Here is exactly the same as yadhhabu, except for the sign or the harf of al-mudara now becomes ta. Tadhhabu. Tadhhabu. Huwa yadhhabu, here tadhhabu. And of course, you remember yadhhabu is sigha number 1. This is sigha number 2. This is sigha number 3, representing huwa, huma, hum. Here we have here. Here we have here, I should say. Tadhhabu, here. Number 4. And this is where we have the external doer. This is where we have the external doer. Exactly the same in the mudari. So just why I'm highlighting those points. Now the dual version of huma, this time feminine, that was yadhhabani. This will be with the ta and then the sukun ha, ba, ni. So let's color that one in the same principle. So the ta is my sign, harf. Then we have ha, ba, and then this is my doer. So that will be red. And then the noon is in green. So we have here tadhhabu, huma tadhhabani, and hunna version is slightly different. So pay attention, inshallah ta'ala. That will be ya with a fatha, dal with a sukun, this with a fatha, and then the ba will take a sukun, and after the sukun there will be a noon. Okay, so let me color that in a different color because it is a different thing, but I will explain later. The ya remains there, yadhhabna, yadhhabna, hunna yadhhabna. So it breaks the rhythm slightly, yadhhabna. Okay, so we have yadhhabu, yadhhabani, yadhhabuna, tadhhabu, tadhhabani, yadhhabna. One more time. Huwa yadhhabu, huma yadhhabani, hum yadhhabuna, hiya tadhhabu, huma tadhhabani, hunna yadhhabna. So let's color that one in with the ya at the beginning to remain consistent. So that's your first 6 done. Huwa, huma, hum, hiya, huma, hunna version. Now we have anta, antuma, antum. So what will those look like? Now here from onwards, okay, ta is going to be the sign of al-mudari, all of them. So just make a note of that. So to save time, I'm going to copy and as you would believe it or not, anta version, anta version and here version is exactly the same. Well, that's the way it is in the Arabic language. You just have to accept it. So this is here version number 4, and number 5, 6, 7, which is anta version, is exactly the same. Now you're going to think, how do I tell the difference? Very easily in context, inshallah ta'ala. Remember, this one and this one are the only two where there's an external doer. This one will not have an external doer. So we'll explain that when we come to the lesson. So tadhhabu, tadhhabu. Anta tadhhabu. Antuma, okay, antuma, I'm going to copy here, save time. Antuma version is exactly the same as the huma version. Tadhhabani. And we have the plural version of antum, and it is exactly the same as this, except that it takes a ta in the front. So let's write that one down slowly so you can see it. Tadhhabu, and then waw is the doer, and the noon at the end. So of course the first is the sign. The sign now, the harf of al-mudara'a is ta, and then the waw is my doer, which represent in this case antum, and the noon is tadhhabuna. And then we have now the anti version. Anti, antuma, and antunna. Antunna. So the anti version is actually significantly different. So pay attention to this one, inshallah. Let's do this one slowly. So begins with the ta, dal with sukoon. Second root letter now takes a fatha, as all the cases we've seen here. And the third root letter takes a kasra, because the doer now is represented by the letter ya. So it's tadhhabina. Let's do our coloring system so they all stand out. Tadhhabina. And you'll be glad to know that the dual version of antuma is exactly the same as the masculine version for the feminine. So tadhhabani, tadhhabani. And then we have antunna. Antunna version, again, is exactly the similar to what we've seen with the hunna version. Antunna version will be, begins with the ta, zal, ha, and then we have the ta is our sign, harf, put that in blue, and then we have the noon at the end, and this noon is going to be colored in purple, even though it's the doer. We will pick that up later. So we have tadhhabna, tadhhabna. And then we have, of course, the last two, most important, as it is the first person for us, nahnu. So I and we. Very, very easy. It is exactly the same as what we've learned, except that we simply change the ya to a ta hamza with a fatha on it. Adhhabu, adhhabu. Please note, don't call this one alif. It is not alif, it's sitting on an alif. It's very important, inshallah ta'ala. So the hamza represents the doer here. Of course, it looks like an alif because it's sitting. The hamza at the beginning of a word is always written on or below an alif. Nahnu version will be exactly the same. Except the ya is changed to a na. Nadhhabu. Now, quick overview. Inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to explain this in more detail later. These versions, yadhhabu, tadhhabu, tadhhabu, adhhabu, and nadhhabu, they have no suffixes at all. So let me highlight those, inshallah ta'ala, in one color. Okay, you can see that very, very clear. So these are very easy. All you got to do, remember, is the beginning bits. And yadhhabu, tadhhabu, tadhhabu, adhhabu, nadhhabu. You can see there is no drama at the end. It's very simple. The duals are also relatively easy. All of them exactly the same. Very similar to the dual in the isms that we learned. So let me find another color that I can highlight this one in so you can see them. The only thing you need to remember is the huma version for the masculine is ya and the rest is ta, ta, ta. The plural for hum and antum is exactly the same, okay, except for the ya and the ta. And yadhhabna and tadhhabna, exactly the same except for that. So let me just find another color here. You can see those two. Okay, so you can see it now. So the unique one really is this one, because the doer, oh, I've collected in red. Apologies, that should be blue. So this is the unique one in terms of the scale. There is nothing similar to it. So let's put that in blue color. So you can see here, this is it. Now, if you just looked at it and try to memorize them as you go, you'll look daunted, but they're not that difficult if you remember the most important ones. Now, the most common ones that are going to be used in the language as far as sigha is concerned, of course, will be the huwa and the hiya version, anta, antum, and hum versions, followed by a and na. These are going to be the common ones. Duals are very rare, and these two again also you'll see rarely, but this is the scale. This is how to learn them. So please make a note of those points. I'm going to explain why I've colored some of them purple and some of them green, and then why the doer is there. And in all cases, the yellow ones that I've highlighted, in all of these, the doer is mustatir, meaning hidden. There is nothing there to indicate them. But only in sigha number 1 and sigha number 4 will you find a doer, which is a noun declared afterwards. And I went through this so slowly in the previous lessons. So in the video of the fa'il, the doer, please check it, only sigha 1 and sigha 4. And the same applies in the mudari. So this is how you will be able to distinguish them, inshallah ta'ala. But don't worry about catching everything I mentioned here. If you can do that conjugation once, you will be able to, inshallah ta'ala, do for others. But I will strongly recommend you do as many conjugations as possible. Please don't copy and paste by typing. Write it by hand. Trust me, it is far, far more effective than trying to see things on the screen. Because once you do something in writing, your brain associates with it. And if you do it once, for example, after Dhuhr prayer, maybe once after Maghrib prayer, and maybe once after Isha prayer, rather than doing them 3 times in one go, your brain will be able to retain it longer. So for the next few days, go through as many conjugation as you like. Don't do 10 of them in one sitting. No, 1, that's it. Copy, no problem. And then you'll see very soon, inshallah ta'ala, you'll be able to memorize these. So this is your conjugation of the mudari. And please trust me, every single mudari you're going to come across will have the similar beginning, similar ending. The only difference will be if the scale varies. And we'll go through all the scales, inshallah ta'ala. We're now sticking with the scale of form 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 are very easy. You get this one, the rest are very, very easy. But if you don't learn this one well, when you go there, you're going to get lost. So please trust me on this before you move on. May Allah grant us tawfiq to learn and put the time and the effort initially required. And believe me, if you initially build a solid foundation, then it will pay dividends. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of us. So here is the scale of yadhhabu on the pattern of yaf'alu. I have put it on the screen. You're welcome to take a screenshot and write it down slowly, make the points. Everything I mentioned earlier now is summarized on this screen. What I didn't want to do is just read it out. You will not be able to retain it. Hopefully the way I've written it is more effective. Normally in the class, I would make sure all the brothers and sisters were writing every single one. And I stand behind them, make sure they write it. This is the only way to get it to stick in the head. So I'm forcing you now to rewrite this. All the notes you need is here. By all means, pause the video, whatever you need to do, and take a look at this. So let's quickly go through what I mentioned earlier so that inshallah ta'ala with the additional notes, it will help you. Now, these are sighas. I explained what sigha is in previous lesson when we did the madi. So exactly the same principle. Only after sigha number 1 and sigha number 4, which is why it's highlighted in black, will you see an external doer. Otherwise, you will translate only the pronoun. So let's begin. Yadhhabu, yadhhabu, huwa, yadhhabu. So the doer is huwa. There is nothing there to indicate the doer. It is mustatir. So this is why I've written mustatir here. Huwa, yadhhabu. Nothing there to indicate the doer. Huma, yadhhabani. And the alif here is representing my huma. Okay. Yadhhabani, which you can see there. They, masculine dual. This one, of course, he or it. This is how you'll translate into English. Go and they go. He goes, they go. That's how you'll translate in English, inshallah. To make the table not cluttered, I've taken the translations out. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the text, inshallah. Yadhhabuna. Yadhhabuna is hum. The waw represents hum. And the noon here is a special noon, which we will explain in forthcoming lessons, and hence is been colored in green. So yadhhabuna. Yadhhabuna. That's your sigha number 4, representing hum by waw. Tadhhabu and here. Here, tadhhabu, and it is the doer is mustatir. How do I notice here? Because of this combination scale, tadhhabu, the here is hidden within the scale. Tadhhabani, tadhhabani. The alif represents my huma, and the noon is the noon of special, which you can see in all of them, inshallah ta'ala. So, tadhhabani, huma, tadhhabani. Hum, hunna, this one, the noon. This noon is also the doer, but I've colored in purple. I'll explain later. Yadhhabna, yadhhabna. Hunna, yadhhabna. They, feminine plural, go. Anta, tadhhabu. Again, nothing there to indicate the doer in L3 is mustatir. How do you tell the difference between this one and this one? Primarily in context, and it's relatively easy because only after this one will you have an external doer. So here we have tadhhabani, exactly the same as this one. Again, context will tell us what the verb is referring to in terms of the exact precise, whether it is the huma version or antuma version. So tadhhabani, and then the plural of antum, very easy. Tadhhabuna, tadhhabuna, the waw being the doer. Tadhhabina, this one's a bit out in terms of all the scales we've looked at. There's a ya is the doer, and that's the unique part of this one, which is the anti version. Tadhhabina. And then we have, of course, tadhhabani, exactly the same, which is the representing antuma with the alif as the doer. And these 3 scales are identical. Even this one is almost identical, except for the ya at the beginning. Tadhhabna, tadhhabna, tadhhabna. Which one is that? Antunna. The doer is the noon, colored in purple. And then adhhabu, I go, nadhhabu, we go. We go. So you can see, alhamdulillah, this is it. This is all the notes you need. And it's very, very easy once you've done it a couple of times, because the ones without the suffixes at the end are very easy to remember. Yadhhabu, huwa yadhhabu, here, tadhhabu, anta tadhhabu, ana adhhabu, nahnu nadhhabu. Very easy. Inshallah, I'll show you how to go through the drill. But for now, this is it. That's all you need, inshallah ta'ala. And this is your first look. All of these points are going to be repeated again and again. But I just want to give it to you right at the beginning, so you got it in one place. And then later on, inshallah, through practice, we will learn this. So at this stage, don't worry about part permission memorization, but please focus on writing them out. So let's read it one more time without any of the additional explanation. All I want you to do is just the words, okay? Don't worry about huma, huwa, huma, hum. That should be now, because of the place and the order that we've done it, should be easy, inshallah. So we have yadhhabu, yadhhabani, yadhhabuna, tadhhabu, tadhhabani, yadhhabna, tadhhabu, tadhhabani, tadhhabuna, tadhhabina, tadhhabani, tadhhabna, adhhabu, nadhhabu. Write it, repeat by looking until you can memorize it. I'm just using dhahaba, it could be anything. Dhahaba, yadhhabu verb, it could be anything. If you've done one, the rest will be very easy for you. Trust me on this one. Please learn to read, write from memory. May Allah grant us tawfiq. Conjugation of al-mudari on the scale of yaf'ilu. Now we're going to do another verb, brothers and sisters. I'm not going to type it all out for you, otherwise the video will be way too long. And a lot of people complain when the videos are too long. They like them sharp and short. But anyhow, we have yaf'ilu. Yaf'ilu is the scale. And as you can see here, it could be any of the three. But this particular verb I've chosen is the one with the kasra in the second root letter. So the root letters are dad, ra, and ba is going into the scale of yaf'ilu. So it becomes yadribu. Yadribu. So we can see here yadribani, yadribuna, adribu, adribani, yadribna. Now, if you've done the others before you came here, then you should be able to read it with me. But nonetheless, inshallah, there is another one for you to practice. Adribu, adribani, adribuna, adribina, adribani, adribna. Adribu, nadribu. Now, I could have written it slowly, but you can see here there is absolutely no difference except for the middle root letter taking a kasra, which is followed all the way through. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as what we did with dhahaba. So that is your scale. Let me give you the details of the scale. So on the details of the scale, you can see here on the screen exactly the same principle. The notes in the bottom are exactly identical. And of course, you need to translate it into English. This verb, dad, ra, and ba, daraba, means he struck. In the present sense will be he hits, or he is hitting, or he will hit, or he strikes, he is striking, he will strike. And it's also used for things like in the Qur'an quite commonly to strike a simile. That's why I've chosen the translation strike, but you can see it means to hit something like this. Okay, daraba yadribu. So yadribu means he strikes or he will strike. And you can see here, strike not as in workers going on strike, as in hitting something. So you have yadribu, yadribani. You can see the red is the doer and the noon is in green and purple, exactly like we did before. And the beginning, ya, ta, a, and na. Again, I mentioned this in the introduction. Without those letters of ya, ta, noon, and hamza at the beginning, it is not a mudari. Cannot be. So they will have these in every one of them. How the three root letters are represented, of course, depends on the bab, and the suffixes will also be identical. That's it. So the real changing that's happening with the mudari really is at the end of the verb. That's where we need to focus on, and of course, how the three root letters fall in. So this is your yadribu verb on the example of, or the scale of yaf'ilu, with the kasra in the middle root letter. Please take time to rewrite it. Inshallah, you don't have to put the notes in, but if you can stick to some coloring system, inshallah, when we go through in detail, you'll be able to see the benefit of learning it this way. Conjugation of al-mudari on the scale of yaf'ulu. I could have left you to do this one by yourself, but I'm sure a little bit of help from me will make it easy for you, inshallah ta'ala. So you can see here, yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna, tansuru, tansurani, yansurna, tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna, tansurina, tansurani, tansurna, ansuru, nansuru. All of them really no different from yadhhabu, no difference from yadribu, except for the middle root letter taking a dhamma or pesh. Dhamma or pesh, whichever one you've learnt. So you can see the scale here. Let's go through it one more time slowly, inshallah ta'ala. So you have yansuru, huwa yansuru. So it is on the scale of yaf'ulu, yaf'ulu. Yansuru, yansurani, yansuruna. Tansuru, tansurani, yansurna. Tansuru, tansurani, tansuruna. Tansurina, tansurani, tansurna. Ansuru, nansuru. That is it, brothers and sisters. You can see exactly the same principle. So what you learned earlier, the details, exactly the same. All the doers are remaining the same. Suffixes are the same. Prefixes are the same for the same corresponding sigha. So all you need is a little bit of effort from yourself. And all I want you to do is practice the three that I've given you. Dhahaba, yadhhabu, nasara, mudari, yansuru, and daraba, yadribu. If you practice these three, just write them down, inshallah ta'ala, read them out, and memorize them. So I'm not worried about you catching all the details I've given you. Just be able to recall them from memory and rewrite them on your table. Then inshallah ta'ala, when you go to study Qur'an in detail or any Arabic text, wherever you see these scales immediately, and even if, and I repeat this, even if the scale is from a different bab, you will be able to recognize and provided you know this one very, very well. Okay, and so please take your time, inshallah ta'ala, and do this task. Alhamdulillah, brothers and sisters, we've done now the 3 different scales. And again, I don't need to labor the point by repeating again and again. There is very little difference. Okay, the very little difference, only the difference being the vowel or the haraka on the middle root letter. I hope and pray, inshallah ta'ala, that this lesson doesn't look daunting. But if you, like anything else in life, if you do it slowly, soon it will become very, very easy for you. So I've written here for your convenience. I hope and pray that there is no typing errors there. But inshallah, all 3 of them conjugated here for your benefit. So make sure you write them out, inshallah ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, we are now familiar with the imperfect verb al-mudari in Arabic. We understand what it means. We understand the tense of it, and that it describes an action that is incomplete, and that is why it is called the imperfect. I also went through very slowly for you what is the scale of al-mudari, and you can see that one already, inshallah ta'ala. Then I conjugated 3 different on the yaf'alu, yaf'ilu, and yaf'ulu scale. The details of all the explanation I've given is almost identical to what we did in the madi. We do need to identify the doer, and we need to identify the scale. And of course, the root will come later on, as we've learned. The advantage of going this way is that when you get to, inshallah ta'ala, a little bit further in this course, you'll be able to recognize words in Arabic you don't even know the meaning of. So you look at a word and you say, okay, this is definitely a mudari verb, this is a madi verb, this is an amr verb, this belongs to this scale. I don't know what the meaning is because I don't know the root, for example. And then all I need to do is look it up in the dictionary. And that is why Arabic is very, very rich in vocabulary. You have a huge number of words, but it is this scale understanding, is particularly for verbs and also derived nouns, which we're going to cover in this course. And again, remember, my object is not to try and get you in everything and trying to eat everything. We are only looking at that which is essential for you to begin to appreciate the Qur'an in Arabic. So this is an overview and this lesson. Inshallah, in the second part, I will cover the essential bits additional to the scale and the mudari, a few points about the mudari in the second part of lesson number 6. I will conclude the video here. Again, I thank you for all your feedback and your patience. It takes me a lot of time to prepare these videos. And I'm trying also, inshallah ta'ala, trying to find additional time and resources to make more videos. But unfortunately, at this time, with all the issues going on, I'm struggling. But inshallah, I'm going to try and stay as consistent as I can. Please do give your feedback, anything that you think I missed out or could be added. Of course, inshallah, I'm a human being, and human beings are prone to making errors. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive my mistakes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant me tawfiq and ability to continue to deliver the lessons in a way that benefits the ummah. And please continue to make dua for the ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect, guide, and guard us, and increase us all in iman. Thank you very much for watching the video. May Allah bless you. Please kindly like, share, and subscribe, and continue your learning. I'm grateful for your du'as. I make dua for all of you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the very best of rewards. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.